This is David Nevermind, and today's controversy is coming from yet another member, of the hip-hop community. Pablo, a new artist signed under Jive, and teamed up with Timberland out of PA, and a question.
Hey, Dawgs, how you doing? Happy Friday here. Liberty Bowl edition. Dawgs win. Since it's the end of the year, I'm not going to talk about jobs right now because we got the win. We'll talk about that maybe next week. No one's hiring right now. Anyway. Hey, Dawgs win 31-23, big win. Nick Chubb time, over 100 yards. He looked like his old self. But big win for the Dawgs. Sitting here. And
You look worried.
yeah, it was a little stressed there for a minute. I will say defense looked kind of bad. They looked really bad, about 16-7, and they were driving, and they missed a field goal. If they would have scored that 23-7, looked really bad. But we got to give it to Kirby Smart making some adjustments in the halftime. I think one of the biggest plays of the game was the fake field goal with Bryce Ramsey running down the field. Big balls on that one. But anyway, thoughts on the game? Good to get the win, and we're 8-5 heading into next year. We got Big Sean in the house finally after popular demand, and here he is.
What's going on, three people that are listening to this podcast?
Hey, 7 views. Hey, 7 views
All
last
three
week.
of whom who are in the room right now. I don't even know who we're kidding ourselves with. Nobody's listening to this.
Hey, we just got good friends hanging out talking about sports.
Hey, Mama Tucker listens to this, right?
Yeah, she does. Mama Tucker views in. Hey, we're up to like 7 or 8 views.
Hey,
Hey,
you got to
Gulf
start
Nation's
someplace.
10. Anyway, yeah, what were your thoughts on the game, Sean? We got the win, 8-5. Your thoughts on it?
Well, my philosophy has always been that college football is really one of the trenches, the offensive and defensive lines. Texas Christian was bad against the run all year. They got a really undersized defensive line. And I think the difference was they just gassed out, got worn out in the second half. I mean, it wasn't per se anything that Nick Chubb or Sonny Michel did or didn't do in the first half. It was just it's a difference between, pretty much having a linebacker run full speed at you a yard or two in the backfield versus having, open lines to run through. So to me, that was the difference. I don't think it was per se coaching or anything else. I think it was just talent.
All right, Nate Dogg, considering you probably really didn't care too much about this game, I think this is actually the first one we watched together. What were your thoughts on the Dawgs and ended up the year 8-5? It is the Liberty Bowl. No one really cares, but the fact that, we got the win is pretty big for the program. It's going to help out recruiting. We're currently number 3 in 2017. We got one of the best offensive line number of recruits for Georgia standards. I thought that's pretty good. Anyway, your thoughts. Get Nate Dogg's thoughts.
I want to ask both of y'all, because I didn't really watch most of the season, but Georgia did have problems facing against mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah.
King Hill pretty much had the day away on the ground today.
Yeah, that's a good question. I thought, Dobbs for Tennessee burned us. Who else was? What was the other big game that got a bunch of yards early in the year? It was another team.
I mean,
Who was it? I guess you could put Chad Kelly was kind of mobile, right?
yeah.
So he burned us. So yeah, they actually struggle. That's why I'm glad we don't play these Big 12 teams. So, but they did make some adjustments in the second half. I think they only gave up 7 in the second half. So I thought we made great adjustments. Mel Tucker still need to work on the red zone defense. Next to last in the hate to say NC2A. But anyway, great win for the program. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about recruiting because Sean's really excited about that. I am also. Sean's the one that really got me in recruiting last couple of years. At first, I was just like, it's recruiting. But the more and more I looked at it, it is your team who you're building around. So recruiting is like huge.
Excited stalking some under 18 kids.
Like you don't.
Disgusting.
Hey, if they lead us to the national title, I'm willing to, I'm can't like give Kirby the keys to the kingdom. Do whatever you need to without, in reason.
No Vaseline.
No lube. Gentle. Estroglide. Anyway, Sean, thoughts on the recruiting class coming up? Maybe some of the highlights. I know we got a big D'Angelo Gibbs coming up, big signing for that. But just thoughts on the recruiting class for 2017.
I mean, so far it's I think exceeded what everybody expected. I think the thing for Georgia in the past, especially with Mark Richt, has always been that they started out incredibly great, spring to summer, and then it was almost like they took a nap or went on sabbatical from September up until late January. You also tended to see a lot of kids that flipped to other programs for, reasons only known to them. But I think the difference is this year is that, not only did he have a great spring summer, but he continued to kind of build on it and has continued to add players and really get a lot of surprise commitments that really we didn't get in the past, like Isaiah Wilson, big right tackle.
How'd that happen? Yes, how did that happen?
Because it was down between Alabama and Michigan.
And Georgia.
We came out of left field.
Why would anybody choose Georgia over Alabama?
Yes, why would anybody choose that?
Playing time, like the school better.
Yeah.
Any other reasons?
Could be a number of them.
Do what you got to do.
Financial reasons?
It could be. Never know.
Hey, we outbidded Alabama possibly. That was a big win. That was a mammoth win. You basically went in and you got him over Harbaugh and Nick Saban, who Nick Saban historically he's had some of the best offensive linemen in the country. So that was a big win.
Yeah, right now we've got the best, among incoming freshmen, we've got the highest ranked offensive line class. Or I should say among incoming recruiting classes, the highest ranked
Sean
offensive
probably
line
knows this.
class.
When's the last time Georgia actually had a 5-star offensive lineman? It's been a while. It was worth a damn.
Well, John Theus, I guess, but I don't think he never really lived up to remotely the expectations that he was.
Now, are they road graders or do they excel at pass blocking? What's their?
You can do it all right.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of both. Isaiah Wilson, the 5-star, is a road grader for certain. Kind of reminds me of John Carpenter, former Alabama left tackle, or right tackle, I should say now, right tackle with the Seattle Seahawks. But you have that pro-style offense, too, and you want to be able to run the ball. They've got a couple of good left tackles as well. Thomas, who looks like he's a little bit light in his pants, probably needs to work some on his hand skills or whatever, but definitely has the hips and quickness to play left tackle. So, and the other thing I think that's different too is that in years past, every class has needs. In the past, I think, though, Georgia would whiff on things it desperately needed. Wide receiver recruiting was bad for a couple of years, even though you had Eason coming in. This year we needed offensive line, you needed wide receivers, you needed defensive backs, and Kirby's pretty much hit everything and, gotten great players. So they're not necessarily all going to come in and do great things for, any number of reasons, but the more classes like that you have, the more likely these guys pan out and play.
How confident are you with this coaching staff that they're going to be able to coach these kids up?
That's a good question.
Jim Chaney's terrible.
Jim Chaney's a problem, though. And the thing is I think you probably do have to give him one more year just because the offensive line is so bad. But, the thing is there just wasn't a whole lot of creativity with the play calling. I don't think he did enough to put us in the best position possible to win. I think the other thing, too, is Sam Pittman, offensive line coach, is a great recruiter. Mm-hmm. I think some of it falls on him, too, because, clearly the guy, I think, throughout the course of the year that was our best left tackle is playing guard for us, Isaiah Wynn. And he refused to move him. He had to have Tyler Catalina out there who I don't know if there was in the game that Catalina didn't give up at least one sack, which, is problematic when you're giving up.
He got burned today a couple times, too.
Yeah, Nicholls State, it did not matter. And so, if he's that bad, you can't tell me there's not somebody else out there who can at least be more effective than him on the roster. And we know it because you saw when Wynn was out there. That offensive line was solid. So I think some of it's on them. Kirby's, I think, had or is still adjusting. There's a difference between running a defense and managing one aspect versus having to macro manage an entire team. I think that's what makes Nick Saban so great is that, he really kind of sees what his team's doing wrong and, he gets on his coaches about adjusting. It seems like Kirby is still stuck in that mindset of philosophy of just coaching every moment, every play, and it causes him to miss some things. So, I guess to directly answer your question, I think Kirby, if you get him a good offensive coordinator, if he continues to recruit well, I think he can easily be Dabo Swinney for whatever credit or lack thereof you want to give Dabo. But I think if he's without ample talent, no, he's not Chris Peterson by any means.
I think there was some creativity today in the offense, though.
What creativity did you see? I saw the same 6 plays run over and over again.
That's not fair. They were establishing the run up the middle to set up play action later in the game.
How effective was play action? What did he have? 121 yards
He
passing.
couldn't connect.
He had 2 touchdowns.
He's a little touch on the ball.
Prediction time,
The
Sean.
flea flicker. I mean, they try to.
The flea flicker that the only reason it went anywhere was a penalty. I mean, give me a break. There's no creativity in play calling. The difference, like I said at the beginning of the game, was that undersized D-line got gassed, and the second half there were just open lanes to run through.
Hey, you guys ran a fake punt, right?
That was
Fake
big.
field goal?
That was big.
Big play of the game.
To me, that was a big play of the game. Ramsey, missed ballsy. Landed a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean that was huge too.
Yeah.
So you're asking about creativity.
But that had what was that? That was special teams, not offense.
Chaney's not calling that play?
Yeah, it's special teams coach is calling that.
So I guess ultimately this boils down to this great recruiting class you guys have. Are they going to be? Is the coaching staff going to be there when all these guys are juniors?
Most of them.
I think that. I mean, some of these guys, like Pittman, could probably get a job anywhere in the country. Like people would want him because he recruits well, and I think for the most part, he's got the track record at other universities of getting guys into the pros. Beyond that, Chaney, it really depends on if that offensive line comes together and if Eason develops. If it doesn't and they struggle next year, I mean, I think he's gone. They're not going to keep him around.
You think Chaney now has the players to run his scheme?
You mean this year's edition or coming in?
Coming in.
It's hard to say.
It seems like he had to try to shoehorn some of these guys into what he was trying to do.
I mean, I think that with a decent offensive line, yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to establish the run. People are going to move up, and then you're going to have wide receivers that are open. But I don't really know what Chaney's system is or isn't. I just know that pretty much everywhere he's been, the offense has steadily regressed in his time. So the thing is, if his system is improving on offense, then probably not. He doesn't have the players needed to run his system because it looks like we're getting better.
Also, going into next season, how would you forecast the defense? How would you see them looking?
Should be good. I mean, the thing is we're returning just about everybody. I mean, I guess Dominic Sanders, who's one of the starting safeties, he's on the fence about coming back or not. Your defensive line, linebackers, pretty much everybody's back. Your 2 starting cornerbacks are back. Now, obviously, you've got off-season issues, injuries, suspensions. You don't know necessarily what happens there. But on the recruiting trail, you brought in, over the last couple of years, some good guys as well, so they should be better.
Because, I mean, you have a defensive-minded head coach who came from Alabama, who's known for their defense. Georgia's always known for putting out defensive stalwarts into the pros. You kind of have high expectations, just like, if we're kind of middle in the pack, we'll be okay.
You also wanted
the strength of that team next year unquestionably should be their defense. You should see a top 20 defense, unless if there's something horribly wrong.
You also, Trenton Thompson, just saying, set a AutoZone Liberty Bowl record with 3 sacks and 3 tackles for loss, which is impressive. He's coming back. He'll probably be all SEC or All-American preseason awards. He'll be a beast. You got everybody back. You're probably looking at a top 20 defense. We got some really good recruits coming in. It's going to play right away. So, I think the really thing you need to focus on is the red zone defense was really bad this year. So if they can focus on red zone defense, but that should be a strong. If we can just, to me, looking at the schedule, already looked at it. You should go 10-2 and win the East next year. It's going to be a disappointment. Tennessee, who we're watching right now, is a train wreck.
What about Florida? They kind of had a top unit this season. Are they coming all back, or are they all?
They still have quarterback problems, and they're not recruiting well. I mean, 19 or 20? I mean, he's coaching them up. He's probably a better coach than Kirby, but Kirby can recruit better, so it just comes down to.
But they should still have kind of a top-ranked defense, right?
And then they lost their defensive coordinator, and I think a lot of their players are gone, too.
Yeah, he hasn't been recruiting that well.
Are you guys being too optimistic about a team that wasn't even ranked for after week 2 of this season?
Let me answer that question.
And
I think Trey's probably being more optimistic.
not just that.
Disney Dog.
But not just that they weren't ranked for the majority of the season.
2 points away from a 9-win season.
They also have an influx of freshmen that are going to be starting next year.
Yeah, it's going to be a very young team.
Were we young this year?
Well, it doesn't exactly help our argument, that. I mean, I think that under if you had a conference where you didn't have, or a division in a conference that didn't have as many open question marks, but the thing is, like, if we were to, let's just say Georgia could go back in time with what they're going to bring in, their 2017 team, if they could go back in time and play the 2016 schedule, same players for everybody else, it may not make that much of a difference. I think the difference, though, is that, the two top teams in the East that they're going to be competing with, Tennessee and Florida, are going to have a lot of turnover. So they're playing a lot of young guys as well. I think that probably gives some level of room for optimism because everybody's going to be playing young guys. Should they go 10-2? Maybe, but again, I think it really just comes down to how quickly that offensive line gets. I mean, you might have some early season hiccups, honestly. And the later they get in the year is probably when you'll see them start to pick up some momentum, I would think.
But you yourself know, offensive line, that's a unit that it takes a while to gel. So
it can, but I think that you got to remember too that at college it's so much more about like just pure talent as well. Like look at Alabama, right? Cam Robinson, their left tackle, number 1 overall player, like plug and play, came in right away, started the last 3 years, pretty much every day he's been there.
Is Alabama starting a lot of freshmen?
They do. They will next year.
So all right. So you guys have eyes on the SEC East crown. Is there?
Well, all I'm saying is the opportunity
Yes.
there? Is the opportunity?
Yes, don't be pissed. I'm not taking another 8-4. You got to do 10-2 to win the East. There's Kirby. You're getting looked at with all this talent. I'm tired of it. Number 3. Look at the schedule. Wait. Look at the schedule. You play LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss. You have Mississippi State in the middle, and all the normal people you play. You got at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's.
Whoa! Let's be real.
No, I'm saying with this
class
class coming in, those 2 running backs, and you're getting offensive linemen. We know the weakness. These guys should come plug and play right away, right?
I mean, probably Isaiah Wilson can.
Also, I want to say who I like as 2018 offensive coordinator. Cheney, you suck. Mike Bobo, come on back home. Because he went 7-5, got blasted in the bowl game. He has another bad year. Come on back home. I know you got 5 kids. Give him like 1.2, 1.4. Come on back home. Jake Fromm's coming in. Easton his junior year. Come on, Ted. Yeah, let's go.
I mean, I don't think it's – there are enough holes on that offense. I mean, again, the thing is you're risking the offensive line gelling and coming together. Easton's still got to work on some of his mechanics. He's great short yardage. His long passes are a problem. I think the thing is offensive side of the ball, there's so many things that you need to improve on that, to really be a 10-2 team, like there's a lot of improvement across the board that has to happen. Is that all going to happen or not? I don't know. It's a lot to put on, one group for – over the course of the year. Maybe 2 years, yeah, they ought to be able to get there. But
so, going into the SEC East next season, is there one team in that division scares you?
No, not really.
SEC East?
Well, actually, let me put it this way. They all scare me because the thing is although, like, we've got young guys that will develop, I mean, depending on how the offensive line pans out, we're not going to be that much better than them yet. 2 years down the road, yeah, we should be a lot better than them.
Let's say, like
2018 should be a special year.
Like South Carolina just jumps out of nowhere, or that's not happening.
Nah, they're still a couple years away.
If Will Muschamp couldn't get it done at Florida, come on.
One of the games I'm still scared about is looking at the schedules. We go on the road. I hate to say it. I think it's at Tennessee, at Vanderbilt. Those are really 2 rough games. Vanderbilt better than usual. Knoxville's always a problem, and then. Of course, Florida with Jacksonville, we're just snake bit there. We've lost 21 out of 26 years, 27. It's just the fact that it's a bad, it's a bad matchup. But anyway, I digress, as I say. Anyway, so we're going to say.
You should talk about the progression of Jacob Eason this year.
Progression or whatever. Anyway,
should.
Do we? You want to talk? To me, I was a little hard on Eason. I'll say my opinion right after the Georgia Tech game. Until then, I mean, that last pick, you just got to beat Georgia Tech. I mean, you beat them 13 out of 15 years. You're kind of like the redheaded stepchild, the cousin. of Georgia. It's just that was a bad loss. I mean, you're up 27-14. You can't throw that pick at the end. Could have been offensive coordinator. You just don't throw that 5-yard out pass. You just blazed it in there. But looking overall, I mean, the kid was definitely clutch. You know, the Missouri game, he was awesome, man. Should have won that Tennessee game. That was a great throw to Ridley.
Great North Carolina.
North Carolina was great. I mean, overall, looking as a true freshman.
Kentucky, Auburn played great in both of those.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe it was a little hard on him. Today, you know, he did what he had to do, win 2 touchdown passes, look a little shaky. If he can just evolve and, as they say, the more experience and the game slows down. I think he was a little deer in the headlights earlier. But they got this Jake Fromm kid coming in who looks like a tall Aaron Murray. 4-star, almost set the all-time passing yards record in the state of Georgia behind Deshaun Watson. So he'll be right behind in guns blazing. So if he messes,
he's in the job, you make him fight it out with him.
I say you let him fight it out, man. I mean, of course he's probably going to go in and start, but I mean, you give the kid a shot. If he comes in and lights it up, I mean, Easton has more experience, but hey, always go with the best player. So. From what I look like, I wouldn't have a meltdown if like Easton went down with an injury. I'm not like, all right, season's over with. I feel like he'd be a good backup, you know. I know he hadn't got off the bus yet, but he looks good.
You just said he hadn't gotten off the bus yet, right?
I agree.
So in other words, you don't know what you got.
Exactly.
Disney dog.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I'll say this. Easton's got a lot of things he needs to work on. Footwork, mechanics. Again, his long ball is a problem. But he pretty much led us to 3 come-from-behind wins. I guess Tennessee makes 4, right? Although we didn't win the game, like that touchdown at the end, he should have won it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, UNC, first game, comes in there, stabilizes that offense, does enough in the passing game, get us the win. Tennessee, he pretty much, wins for us, but for that Hail Mary pass. Kentucky, Auburn, he did enough for us to win. And the same thing today. You got to factor in a couple things, one of which the kid's 18 years old. Certainly, I think between the years is probably more developed than Stafford at this point in his career. He also has an offensive line that, for all intents and purposes, looks like they have concrete cinder blocks on their legs because they can't block for shit. Pardon my French. And his receivers really have had issues kind of creating separation.
This internet, you can cuss.
Yeah. His receivers have had issues getting separation as well. So I think when you line all that stuff in, I mean, the fact that a kid, despite all of that, has enough moxie to get you wins really in 3 games, almost 4, and just, he threw the pick in the Tech game or whatever, but honestly, that was also, I think, I put that loss on Kirby more than I do anybody because you're playing a triple option team, and rather than just let them score and give your offense enough time to move the ball, Kirby tried to fight it out with them right until the end, left you less than 2 minutes to go. I mean, that's just putting your offense, which isn't very explosive, in bad positions. It's poor coaching. Now, granted, that still doesn't excuse Eason, throwing that pick or whatever. But he's a freshman and, he is a player. Like, they're going to throw picks occasionally. So, your job as a coach is to kind of put your players in the best position possible. To me, that was a no-brainer. I mean, just let them score. You're not defensive coordinator anymore. You're the head coach. Your job is to ensure you win games, good, bad, ugly, whatever. But he kind of lost sight of winning the awards for to win this battle, which he ultimately didn't win. Ended up losing both.
Sorry, I wanted to mention this. This is funny. Reading some of the comments on the internet. So this is from longtime Georgia fan. Looks like Mike. Is it Mike Mills, former bassist of REM? This is what he said watching the game. He goes, "As noted, Georgia fan is tired of Georgia offensive coordinator Jim Chaney. After a 3-and-out in the second quarter, Mills wanted Chaney gone like immediately. His tweet was, 'Fire Jim Chaney now,' during the game." I just thought that was kind of funny.
What was the last REM hit?
It doesn't matter.
What's the frequency, Kenneth?
They retired like 10 years ago.
Yeah, but dude, hey, they're from Athens. Die hard. Hey, John
I'm saying
Mayer.
that's why they haven't had
Hey,
it.
John Mayer, REM. Who else came? Was it Jim? What was that Smith kid? Ooh, that was a good catch. So great music coming out of the great town of Athens. There.
Hey, Columbia has Cootie and the Goldfish.
Oh, Columbia, terrible. Anyway, so hey, great Georgia talk here. Ended off 8-5. We're going to jump into this highly recommended college coaching changes. Where should we start at, Nate Dogg? 2017. All right, I'm looking at the college football changes 2017. Well, first off, we'll mention a couple of these, and we'll get Big Sean's analysis. He's always loving watching the. Here we go. To me, the home run hire of the year, and Sean was all over his nuts all year. Anyway, was the great Tom Herman from Houston, slurp gold, heading to Texas.
Sean, wipe your mouth.
That was huge. Also, we can talk about Florida Atlantic getting the great Lane Kiffin. I think the last 3 years they went 3-8, and I guess I was told from Coach off of ESPN he took a $700,000 salary cut to go coach at Florida Atlantic to get out up under all the ass chewings by Nick Saban.
What's the trade-off? He lives in Fort Lauderdale now.
I mean, would you want to let Tuscaloosa, Alabama pay a cut, and you're getting away from Saban? And hey, isn't that Fort Lauderdale area?
I think so. That's South Florida.
I mean, there's all kind of coaches. Also, you talk about Ed Algeron staying at LSU and picking up your boy Matt Canada, offensive coordinator from Pittsburgh. That's who Sean wanted. I digress.
Yeah, I mean,
either that's all the coaching changes. Whatever you want to mention.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that obviously some of these coaching changes and getting the good ones a bit about timing. I think that, at least if rumors are to be true, Tom Herman was headed to LSU until Texas gave him a call and said, hey, we're getting rid of Charlie Strong, so hold off on signing those papers. And went ahead and took that job. He's been impressive his first 2 years at Houston, although, he did have some questionable losses, a couple of questionable losses last year. So obviously, you hope, and he's not necessarily flash in the pan, but the guy's got a track record as a head coach. I think he'll do okay. To me, the most interesting one I think is the guy that wasn't hired or given an opportunity, and that's Western Michigan coach PJ Fleck. I think he's somebody that you look for. He's kind of got that same pattern of Urban Meyer or Nick Saban, where they come in a program and they progressively get them better. I mean, they got 12-0 this year,
13-0,
13-0,
and they're in a big time, and they're in a big time bowl too.
He goes 13-0, and then he doesn't even get a sniff or whatever. I'll tell you, if he continues that next year, that might be somebody you see gets a look at maybe the Notre Dame job. Although, if you're Florida Atlantic, why aren't you giving that guy a call over Lane Kiffin?
It's on the same level.
What is?
Florida Atlantic and Western Michigan.
Yeah, but here's what the issue is, though, right? Lane Kiffin was at USC and pretty much did nothing with that, right? So why all of a sudden do you think he's going to do better at Florida Atlantic, where he's got maybe a fraction of the resources, is still an asshole as far as we know, versus PJ Fleck, who took a program that was, what were they, 2-12 before he got there and progressively built that into something.
Why would you want to? I just feel like that's a lateral move for someone like him going from Western Michigan to Florida Atlantic, unless you just tired of Florida.
See, I disagree. I think if you're in South Florida, the weather and the recruiting base alone is going to make it better.
Will they play in the Sun Belt?
Whatever they play, you're in South Florida. It's a great recruiting ground.
Yeah, so then that means Florida International will do a good job too, right?
Well, I mean, where is it going to be? Part of life is about convenience, correct? Is it not?
Maybe he's comfortable in Michigan.
I guess, but the thing is, if you can go in your backyard and get players versus having to go to Ohio, wherever else, and get these kids, why not?
I don't know. Trey, you're a salesman, right? So you probably, let's say you do good in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia territory, and all of a sudden you get a job and you have to move out to Washington. Now you have to make new contacts. Isn't that kind of out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was from small town Georgia, so moving to Charlotte was pretty big for me. I know you guys roll your eyes over there, but I agree with what you're saying. I think it comes from competitive background, where you see yourself going. Are you happy where you are? For example, they just had an article that came out with Fuentes at Virginia Tech. He loved the small town atmosphere. That's the reason why if he didn't get that small town atmosphere, if you would give him a big time program, he said, I would stay at Memphis. He goes, I like Virginia Tech because Blacksburg, a small kind of college field. He said, if you would give me a big-time program like a large city or state, I wouldn't have went. So it kind of just depends on, also you got to look at your family and that type of stuff. So
no, and I mean, you're right. I mean, the thing is, he might not necessarily be comfortable there, but my bigger issue is the fact that you don't even give him a call to see, you don't put feelers out there or anything.
Kind of like Tom Herman wasn't even called, but he said he was interested in the Georgia job.
Yeah, his own people put that out.
In my opinion, it's Florida Atlantic.
I mean, maybe so, but I mean, the thing is, if you're there in South Florida, you've got an easy,
Now, if it was South Florida, I understand.
But you're still in South Florida, right? So you already have a leg up in terms of scouting some of these guys. Because you have to get under the radar guys, as opposed to having to fly, 6 hours to go recruit these guys.
Wasn't FAU at least top 10 like a couple of years ago?
No, I think they're like 3-9 the last 3 years. Nate Dogg probably mentioned this a while back in a text. All right, so I'm gonna name all these. These are all the Florida coaches recently in the state of Florida. This is gonna be tough for recruiting. All right, you got Rick there at Miami. You got Lane Kiffin's gonna be at Florida Atlantic. You got Butch Jones is gonna be at Florida International. You got Jimbo Fisher's at Florida State. Swamp Donkey at McElwain's in Florida. You also have.
You mean Butch Davis?
Yeah, Butch Davis. Sorry, Butch Jones at Florida Atlantic. Keep Butch Davis. I'm sorry, John his own brand. And then also to me, one of the better hires of the year is Charlie Strong to South Florida. So I'm saying that's a lot of big time names in the state of Florida. Do you think they're gonna break up that whole state of Florida, or how do you see that going? 'Cause that's a lot.
Saban's still gonna come in and take whoever he wants.
I think, like Nate Dogg said, I mean, it's Florida Atlantic, Florida International, Florida A&M for a reason. You're going to want to go to schools with tradition, prestige, winning programs. Winning attracts winning. There are a lot of good coaches there. Speaking of Butch Davis, though, what a moron for leaving for the Cleveland job. If he just stayed at Miami, strong possibility he goes down as one of the greatest college coaches ever.
That's.
It's a college football show, Big D. I mean, right? Probably one of the biggest bumble you-know-what moves of all time.
Wait, isn't that the ultimate goal for college coaches, though, to make the NFL?
No.
They pay about the same, though, in college.
Yeah, but there's...
It just depends. Like, some guys who don't want to go recruit.
But there's miles of prestige difference between being an NFL coach and a college coach.
I mean, if you follow, European sports, especially, European soccer, your goal as a coach is coaching the highest professional league, and here in this country it's kind of backwards. Someone like Coach K should be coaching in the NBA if he's that great of a coach, compared to European standards. But he'd rather just stay in college and be one of the greatest college coaches all the time. Basically, one of the greatest minor league coaches ever.
All right, 2017, Brandon Jones. All right, I'm gonna name out all these, and I want you to pick. Everybody can chime in. The best hire of 2017 from what's already happened. This could be OC or head coaching, and the worst hire, in your opinion. I'm gonna name off a bunch of names, and we can go from there. All right, Baylor picked up Matt Rule from. I think he come from Temple.
I think so.
Temple turned that program around this year at 10-3. Cincinnati got Luke Fickell. He replaced Tommy Tuberville, 4-8.
He was still coaching?
Yeah, he was at Cincinnati for a while. Connecticut, no one cares. Lane Kiffin, Florida Atlantic. Butch Davis replaced Ron Cooper and Ron Turner, who looks like they were 4-8. Fresno State pick up Jeff Tedford, Sean Elliott, Georgia State. Major Applewhite replaced Tom Herman. Those are going to be big shoes to fill. Ed Algerine can also talk about that, picking up Matt Kennedy. To me, I'll go ahead and say the best coordinator hire in the offseason, Sean Plagge, is Matt Kennedy at LSU. Look on paper, home run hire. If you can just coach that defense up, and then, as Nate Dogg says, actually find a 5-star Louisiana kid.
No, just find a kid that can throw a forward pass in that state.
Exactly. I agree. Willie Taggart to Oregon, getting rid of that Mark Helfrich, which I think they're giving him like $11 million payout. You might as well just go hang out.
Who?
Do whatever.
The Oregon coach?
Yeah, they had like a monster payout. Tom Herman to Texas, big time. Mike Sanford Jr. to Western Kentucky. Charlie Strong to USF. So anyway, just throw out some great hires and bad hires. How those what you thought? Your opinion. Name a bad hire. We talked about good ones. What do you think just was a terrible hire? I think Lane Kiffins. I don't think he's going to turn. I think he's going to be there 2 years. What do you think most? Stepping stone.
Maybe. Well, it depends, right? I mean, is he only there 2 or 3 years because he rebuilds the program, or is it because he's so bad that he gets fired again? You know what I mean? I mean,
you can't go anywhere but up. You got 3 wins last.
I don't know, man. You can definitely go down 3 wins. Yeah, I wasn't really sold on the Lane Kiffin hire. To me, he's just, and I know at some point you do have to kind of, it's hard to evaluate what he's like now because Saban really doesn't let his assistants talk to the media other than at bowl time if they're interviewing for jobs. But one thing that's been systemic throughout his career is he's just showed, poor maturity. I think his offensive strategy is a bit fundamentally flawed, and I think he abandons the run too much when you need it. So, you factor in, he clearly has had issues in the past, I think, with, mastering his scheme. I mean, he's been able to do it pretty well when he's had a good head man like Pete Carroll or Nick Saban. But on his own, he's floundered. I mean, there's no reason why, if you're a good coach, other than if you're on sanctions or something like that, there's really no reason why you shouldn't be able to turn USC into a winner immediately. Had all the resources in the world, and just didn't get it done. I mean, it kind of epically disappointed there. He doesn't strike me as the type of guy that's going to be able to really do much at, down there in South Florida. So, I don't know. I mean, I didn't necessarily like that hire. I'll be honest, I didn't like the Ed Algeron hire either, per se. I kind of understand why they did it. And it is a little bit better knowing now that you got Matt Canada, who just did phenomenal things as Pittsburgh's offensive coordinator. I believe it was the Broyles Award winner as well as top assistant coach in football, right?
That's correct.
Willie Taggart, I wasn't really sure.
Jeremy Pruitt, D.C. Broyles Award winner. Where did he used to coach? Georgia.
The other one, too, I wasn't really sold on is Willie Taggart from South Florida to Oregon. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like it's a fish out of water, to be completely honest. I think that and he may do okay. I don't know, though. It seems like you're taking kind of a southern guy, doesn't really have any connections out to the West Coast, and bringing him out there. You're not really going to know the recruiting background. You don't have any kind of relationship with any of the coaches out there.
I heard he has ties in California, though, so he may be able to recruit that.
Yeah, South Florida was 10-2 this year, but before that he's a less than 500 coach. But he had a good year this year. Might be just because he's hot.
So yeah, probably. I mean, everybody's got at least one family member who's lived in California or something like that. I mean, it's pretty much like the biggest state in the union,
What NFL coaches are heading back to the dorm rooms?
That's
none.
Rex Ryan. They say he's a player's coach. I can see him coaching up some players. What do you think? Rex Ryan. He's going to be a coordinator somewhere. All right. For the sake of time, jumping on here. Let's talk about playoff games.
Playoffs.
Rest of the bowl games. I mean, Georgia won. That's all we care about, right? Yeah. That's right. All right. So we got New Year's Eve tomorrow. It's going to be number 4, Washington Huskies against number 1 Bama. Bama against the field, as I say. And also Clemson, Ohio State, number 2 against number 3. Thoughts? I'm just going to throw it out there. Who do you think could match up with Bama better? Would it be Clemson or Ohio State? And does Chris Peterson even have a shot against Bama?
I think it's going to be a repeat of last year. I think Clemson matches up better with Alabama because I still don't know. I mean, just from the Ohio State games I've watched, they sometimes look like they just fall asleep. They look like they're into it. Sometimes JT Barrett just looks like
he struggled this year.
Like, he's really struggled. I even like read stuff where fans were even begging Tom Herman to come back, like that's even possible.
Well,
but like Trey said earlier in the year, Alabama against the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's been lost. I think when Chris Peterson went to Washington, I mean, the guy just did phenomenal things when he was at Boise State University. They were definitely the giant killers. It took him a little bit of time to turn Washington around. He definitely has. It's a feel-good story. A genuinely nice guy, but again, a big part of football is about matchups, and you've got a team that's run first, pass second, and the talent level between Bama and them is just so great. I mean, I just don't see Washington being able to overcome that. To me, the real interesting one is Clemson and Ohio State because, well, Ohio State I think has definitely had some flaws on offense. I think Clemson's kind of got some flaws there as well. And the one thing that Ohio State does really well is red zone defense. So to me, if they're able to kind of, even if they give up some big plays, I think as long as they're not giving up for touchdowns, if they're able to kind of stifle that Clemson offense in the red zone, basically turn it into an ugly game, I can see Ohio State winning that. Now that's between Ohio State and Clemson. Who do I think matches up better? I think probably Clemson, just because of the fact that they've got a really good offensive line and they've got explosive playmakers who can throw the ball. But I don't think Ohio State's by any means a cakewalk.
All right, so for the record, does everybody agree? So who'd you say who's going to play in the national title game and probably win? Who's your picks?
Who's going to win it? It's Alabama.
Who do you think they're going to play that? So are you agreeing Clemson?
I'm going to say Ohio State.
So that's who you're going with? I'm going to go with Clemson matchup of last year. I just think Deshaun Watson a little bit better than JT Barrett, and I just think they got a little bit more firepower. I'm seeing something like 31-28, 35-31. It'll be close. I know it's 3-point spread, but I'll take Clemson in points.
Here's the thing: like if it doesn't go, if Ohio State does win the game, do you think Urban Meyer's going to pay tribute to Woody Hayes and punch a Clemson player?
That's a good point.
I don't think he has the heart for it.
All right. Well, that's our thoughts on that. Good college football talk. Do we want to end up with talking a little, in a sensitive subject, a little NFL? Or you want to go into some UFC?
Let's go to UFC.
Wow, let's talk about the NFL, man.
Nate Dogg skips it.
Let's talk about the NFL.
Second time, let's go to UFC.
All right. Well, let me just throw a little haymaker. Hey, Falcons. How far are the Falcons going to go? Nate Dogg. And what draft pick do we working on for the Panthers? Remember I said earlier, I think 6 and 10, maybe top 15 draft pick. What do the Panthers need in the offseason?
Offensive tackle, defensive line.
Who would you take right now? I know you've been looking, Nate Dogg. Who would you take? What do you need? Would you say defense first or offense? First round pick, you're like top 15.
It's time to address the offense. They got to get guys on the offensive side of the ball. They got to start putting assets over there. Who's
one of the better offensive linemen you've seen coming out?
Cam Robinson.
Is he like top 10 good or like what is projected right now? Panthers pick. You probably looked at it.
Around 9.
Think you can get top 10? Is he still there?
If Fournette's there, I think they should take the look also.
Whoa.
Fournette? Hell no.
He gets hurt a lot. He's just fragile. I'm saying, like, beast physically.
Stewart will be there. He needs a backup.
You might get him later. Could you get him like second or third round?
Mm-hmm. I thought he was the first round pick.
I don't know. What do you think? He's been hurt a lot. He had ankle problems.
Yeah. I don't know.
Dude, how about like something like late, like get that McCaffrey dude?
I don't know where you can fit him in.
You just want to just kind of like give him the ball. I don't know. He's an every down back.
He just looks like the classic Patriots player.
That's true.
All right, well, we'll throw this out there.
1940s football.
Going down the stretch. Or you're probably going to agree it's going to be Cowboys Patriots in the Super Bowl. Anybody else coming out of any other surprise teams? Nate Dogg?
I'm still going to go with Patriots Seahawks.
You think so? Could they beat them in Jerry World? That's probably where they're going.
Man, I don't think so, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, why the Seahawks? They have no running back.
Yeah, their offensive line's atrocious. You like that defense against them?
NFC this year is such a crapshoot, though. Any of those teams can make it. The Giants can make a run. I hate to say it, the Falcons can make a run.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to go with the Seahawks because Russell Wilson really knows how to pull some bullshit out of him, out of the game.
I mean, to me, I know Falcons homer here. I actually think the Falcons could maybe like give Dallas a matchup like in a shootout because I mean Falcons got no defense, but I mean they got some playmakers. Get a healthy Julio, Taylor Gabriel.
How's the Cowboys defense?
Sanu. They're playing better, but at first they were bad.
Yeah,
they're average.
Decent.
15, top 15.
Well, here's the thing.
They're good enough.
Hey, man, that looks like that looks like that stuff we were watching, man. Yeah. Hey, PWC Pro Wrestling. Dang, that's in. Look at them, got the cover. Yeah, I mean, it should be some interesting. How about out of the AFC? They got a puncher's chance just because they got some offense. Any chances the Steelers giving the Patriots problems?
Sure, they had a chance. Didn't have to stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, you got killer bees, man. Browns, one of the best ones. Le'Veon Bell, to me, best running back in the NFL. Out of the backfield, what do you think? He's good.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Maybe even better, Ezekiel. Think about if you put him with Ezekiel Elliott's line.
Yeah, I mean,
imagine if you put Todd Gurley with his line.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Got to throw my boy into there, man. Sorry, Todd. You suck this year in fantasy, but you got no line. Maybe we'll get you a new head coach. Hey, speaking of that, we'll throw this out there. Who would you look at for the Rams or the Buffalo Bills head coach? Who would you look at? Any names popping out there?
I think Bills, they have a coach in waiting.
How about I've been hearing Tom Coughlin coming out of retirement.
For the Jaguars?
The Jaguars?
What is Jaguars interview?
Hey, remember Gruden talked with the Rams and he said and accepted like a really crazy salary he was asking for. Come out of the booth. Would you take him though? Is he proven? Is he? And he hadn't done it in a while. Would you take Gruden?
Well, they have a very talented team ready to go.
Yeah, you got Jared Goff, the fighting coughs.
I don't know, Trey. You've asked like 6 questions. Which one do you want us to answer?
Where are we going with this? Well, give me your.
This is gonna be a great episode.
No, just saying.
Hey, honestly, let's go ahead and edit it after college football. Where are we going with this?
No, you want to go NFL or UFC? Hey, let's go UFC because Nate Dogg's butthurt over the Panthers. We'll move along. All right, let's talk about my second favorite sport to watch. A little UFC 207 and the return of Rowdy Ronda against Amanda Nunes, the only open gay champion. Really great hair recently. I've been watching the embedded shows.
So LGBT, they're going to be out there in support for her or something?
Yeah, I mean, she's not. She's kind of got that look. I wouldn't mess with her, but not my type, even though she's Brazilian. Anyway, pretty good card.
Bring Damon in on this one.
Cain Velasquez and Mauricio Verdum. That was a bummer earlier or last week when Cain Vasquez, as I call him, pulled out with I think it's a nerve separate. What is it? What nerve? What's it called?
Back.
Yeah, his back. He had to pull out. That really sucked.
How do y'all feel about Renna not doing media for this?
Yeah, I think that was definitely a distraction. I think she's not in it all the way. She looked pretty good at the weigh-ins, but I don't think she's going to win. I think it's going to be a first-round knockout by Nunes. I think she's going to retire after this.
Jeez, really?
Yeah, because she's not a good striker. Holly Holm, who's lost 2 straight since then, knocked her out in the second round. Just not a good matchup. I know Big D over here argues with that because Nunes maybe has some losses in her record, but made Miesha Tate retire. I just don't think Ronda has the heart anymore. She's been really weird about the media. It's also hurting her pocket because, pocketbook, because you're also getting paid by pay-per-view buys. You're not doing media. No one's really listening to it. So, I don't know. I got Nunes by knockout. Big D, come on. Hey, special appearance by Big D over here. What do you think? Give us your thoughts on this. Nunes versus Ronda Rousey. And who you got?
Well, first off, it's women's MMA, so
Easy now.
There's a ceiling,
second bankable star.
There's a ceiling to how much I follow it or care about it. I think that's true for most people. Regarding Ronda Rousey, I'll just take what's true in men's MMA and apply it to women's MMA, Amanda Nunes has caught 4 L's in her career.
How many in the UFC though?
She caught, I think, 1 or 2 of them, right? And they've been in like the past 2 or 3 years. And these are people that Ronda Rousey starched in 15 seconds, like literally 15 seconds, setting right, like setting UFC records with how quickly she finished these people. And these are people that have beaten Amanda Nunes, right? And like saying that Ronda Rousey is going to get knocked out by Amanda Nunes because she has bad striking, she's always had bad striking. It's not anything new that like people think that all of a sudden Ronda Rousey is a bad striker.
Arm bar.
And then replying to what you were saying also, Trey, about Amanda Nunes retiring Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate retired Miesha Tate. It really had very little to do with what Amanda Nunes did. Like,
she broke her nose.
Miesha Tate had like 1 foot out of the game anyways at that point in her career.
She was a champ, though.
Damon, are you buying any of what Trey's saying about Ronda Rousey maybe being a bit of a head case after the Holly Holstrom's loss?
Took a whole year off. No one heard of you.
Yeah, it's hard to comment on stuff like that just because...
It's speculation?
Not just that it's speculation, but fighters generally are a different breed anyways, right? So just the fact that she doesn't want to do media or whatever, Conor McGregor doesn't do media. The UFC shuts the event down, right? And I think that this has to do with like Rousey having a better relationship with Dana White or the UFC brass than Conor McGregor does. And I think that stems largely from the fact that Conor McGregor demands more monetary recompense. Like, he's more active about his pay than Ronda Rousey is. So the UFC is willing to do more favors for Ronda Rousey. Even though she hadn't sold, I believe that fight was last year, so she hadn't sold a single pay-per-view for the UFC this year, while McGregor sold over 3 million pay-per-view buys this year.
But you don't find that weird, though, because, like, Conor didn't do an event, like a commercial or whatever, they pulled him from an event, like, earlier this year?
That's what I was just saying. It's, it's a different standard.
All right, what all I got to say is the comparison.
Hang on, we're having an interesting topic here. Let's finish this.
Well, I had some pause there. I was trying to feed it.
We'll feed the pause.
Well, back to what he was saying is, all right, the difference is, all right, Conor McGregor, he got a bunch of crap about that, pulled him out of the fight. But the thing about the difference on the fighters and the heart is Conor McGregor, after he got beat by Nate Diaz, he could have fought at 145, 155. He's like, yo, fuck it. As he said, I want Nate Diaz again. I want to revenge my loss, right? So that was really dangerous, coming back and fighting again at 170. Beat him by split decision. Then he's like, you know what? I want the 155 champ. Goes in and murks.
Yeah.
He murks Eddie Alvarez. 2-division champ. The greatest ever. Hold on. He had 145 and 155 champ. Even we got Big D. He's not a fan over here that said that was impressive. Number 1 pay-per-view buys guy right now. Number 1 in the company. He's taking a little time off because of his pregnancy.
She took a year off
Yeah,
her wounds.
exactly.
All right. Regarding the point about the Nate Diaz point in particular, the Eddie Alvarez...
He went up and fought at 170. He's a smaller dude.
Eddie Alvarez is a great win for Conor McGregor.
Impressive.
So we agree on that. There's really nothing to discuss there. But before that, Conor McGregor had 2 fights with Nate Diaz at 170. Now, Nate Diaz is a fighter. Let's just talk about this card. Nate Diaz lost to Stun Gun Kim a couple of years ago. Stun Gun Kim I don't even think he's on the main card. I think he's on the undercard for UFC 207.
He's on the main card.
He's on the main card?
Yeah. Just by injuries.
By injuries.
Yeah.
And he's probably curtain jerking the main card.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? So, Nate Diaz is a guy that failed enough at 155 that he had to move up to 170. So there's literally, Conor McGregor fighting Nate Diaz. He's fighting a guy that was, for all intents and purposes, a failure at lightweight.
But he's a bigger dude.
Who had to? No, he's not a bigger dude.
170.
No, he's not 170. He's a 155er that fails his way up to 170 because he lost most of his big fights at 155. Yeah. Right? So Nate Diaz at that point in his career had nothing to do because he couldn't make 145. So the only move he could make was go up to 170 and fight, have newer competition where he can at least get new looks at guys.
Yeah. How great is Colin McGregor?
How what?
How great do you think Colin McGregor is?
Be honest.
Conor McGregor. So he's had great accomplishments. He's won the 145-pound title with sensational knockout over Jose Aldo.
13 seconds.
Right.
Hadn't lost in 10 years.
Never defended that belt, by the way. Right. He'd rather have fought Nate Diaz twice. Right. And it's not just like the first Nate Diaz fight came around because he was slated to fight for the 155-pound title a year ago. And that fight fell through because of injury, so he just fought Nate Diaz, who was on that card, and they fought at 170. So, like, McGregor has great wins over Jose Aldo, who's a legitimately, historically great MMA fighter, and Eddie Alvarez, who is not quite the fighter that Jose Aldo is, but he's a very, very good fighter. He won the UFC lightweight belt, right? So, like, those two wins for McGregor are great wins. He doesn't have anything else besides that. So, part of the problem is that, sandwiched in between these two great wins are two fights against Nate Diaz, which are historically irrelevant. Like, there's no relevance in those wins, and it doesn't do anything for him. Like, if you're talking about fighters who had the best 2016 this year, you can't include the Nate Diaz one in there because it's historically irrelevant.
And why is it irrelevant?
Because it's fought. First off, it's contested at a weight that doesn't mean anything for Conor McGregor. It's not a championship weight for him. It's probably not going to be a championship weight for him for a couple of years if he's still on the same trajectory as he is now. And it's against the guy who's probably not even in the top 10 in the division. So Nate Diaz is one of those guys that's a good fighter that's talked his way into becoming a great fighter in the minds of fans.
Kind of Chael Sonnen.
Exactly. Almost precisely like Chael Sonnen. Mm.
Can you go in more about the Cruz Garbrandt matchup? I know the trash talk's been hilarious.
Yeah, I was actually just looking at that. You got Dominic the Dominator Cruz going against Cody Garbrandt. The backstory is Cody Garbrandt 25-10-0, knocking out everybody, been murking everybody. But he was coach and part of Team Alpha Male with Uriah Faber, which was an ongoing rivalry with Dominique Cruz. And Dominique Cruz has been just doing hilarious stuff. The best line that I heard, he goes, the name of the team is Team Alpha Males, but he calls them Team Alpha Fails. Basically, he's beat three of their guys there. He goes, I'll build a house from beating you guys in fight bonuses. He has dominated your whole team. He goes, little boy, I'm coming to knock you out. He goes, he's like a little pit bull that just, every time I say something to him, he's just like, rah, always jumping out at me and everything. So they had, after the weigh-in yesterday, he's always been looking for him to fight him like outside and everything. Cody Garbrandt, heavy hands. He's been blitz creaking through everybody, but Dominique Cruz is similar to Floyd Mayweather and one of the hardest ever to hit. So I got Dominique Cruz by decision, and I'm actually giving my buddy Turbo DraftKings picks. I'm going Dominique Cruz by decision.
And I heard the wives and the significant others are getting into it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he was on Twitter talking about his girlfriend and everything. That's another thing with Cody Garbrandt, saying, stay out of this, woman. This is big boy business. That's what he said. Hey, they also call Dominator the puppet master because he gets in your head. He's got mental warfare. Cerebral assassin. To quote the late, great Triple H, even though he's still alive. Hey, what's your thoughts on Dominique Cruz and Cody Garbrandt, Damien? What do you think? Who's going to win that?
I would go with Cruz. This is in the bantamweight division, 140 or 135, right? Part of the problem there. Part of the problem in these lower weight classes is that you have a dearth of competitors in the weight divisions. There's not many men that are walking around at 135 pounds to begin with.
Yeah.
On planet Earth. And this is this goes doubly for the women's divisions also. There's just not as many. First off, there's just not many women who are willing to fight, and then let alone fight at 125 pounds or whatever weight class they're fighting at. So Cody Garbrandt's a guy with 10 MMA fights.
Yep.
Like, can you imagine in a sport that's been around as at this point, UFC's been around long enough where they should be having guys shouldn't be getting title fights.
Having 10 matches.
Yeah, having 10 matches. So there's that. Dominic Cruz is a guy that's the greatest fighter in the bantamweight division ever. He's fought unfortunately, there's just not a lot of good competitors. I would say his signature win is against Demetrius Johnson, who's actually the UFC 125-pound champion, like a weight class below.
Yep.
So it's interesting only in the fact that Dominic Cruz gets another chance to cement his legacy, because Dominic Cruz is a guy So Dominic Cruz's UFC reign is actually a tale of two eras. He was the champ 3-4 years ago.
Also in WC.
Yeah, from WC moved to the UFC. Was the champion there when he beat Uriah Faber, and then was beset by injuries for 3 years basically. And then now this is his second reign as champion, and he's getting to do it all over again. So it really puts him, because he's done it in almost two separate eras, it makes him a greater fighter. It probably makes him a greater fighter than it would if he continuously reigned the way Anderson Silva reigned for 7 straight years. Yeah. So it's interesting only in that case.
Where do you, I guess, jumping away from the fights, but just talking about UFC and fighting in general, where do you, right now, what is John Jones' legacy in the UFC? If that title ended today, what would it be?
Yeah, John Jones, in my opinion, is the greatest UFC fighter who ever lived, which is a separate discussion than the greatest MMA fighter who ever lived. I think that crown goes to Fedor Emelianenko.
Bullshit!
But John Jones is right up there. Part of the issue with John, at this point, John Jones.
Are we talking about the GOAT question here? We can talk about this. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the only fight John Jones needs to, and this is, he's done so much that it doesn't really matter at this point for his legacy, but if he beat Rumble Johnson, right, at that point, he's literally cleaned out the division, and he's cleaned it out for basically 8 straight years. He's the greatest UFC fighter of all time. What hurts his legacy a little bit is that a lot of the guys early on in his reign that he beat are guys that either should have been fighting at middleweight, 185 pounds. John Jones fights at 105 pounds. These guys that should have fought at 185 pounds or that moved to the 185-pound division, right? So he's sort of caught between two eras, the way Dominic Cruz was. He's caught in kind of the Wild West heyday of the UFC, where guys could kind of move around in weight classes, and then after that, he also beat up guys who were his weight and his same size.
So you don't think my thing with it too is that I feel like he was somebody that started out. Well, let me ask this question, because to me, one of the issues I have with John Jones, and I'm a huge John Jones fan, is that he was just railing off these wins, and again, he's cleaning out the division. I think, like you said, he was so much better, than the competition he was fighting. But then all of a sudden, you got substance abuse problems and suspensions, and so we haven't seen him fight in a while. Where do you rank him in comparison to Anderson Silva?
Yeah, John Jones has a much better resume, much deeper resume than Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva was fighting in an era of the UFC where they literally had no middleweights, and the majority of the other great middleweight, you can't really say they're great fighters, but the majority of the good middleweights seem to have been fighting in Strikeforce for all we knew, because most of those guys in Strikeforce moved over to the UFC after the acquisition, wound up either winning the title or fighting for the title or becoming top contenders. Guys like Jacare, Luke Rockhold, these are, two of the top 3 middleweights alive right now. And they were fighting in Strikeforce while Anderson Silva is beating up guys like Talis Latis and
Damian Maia.
Yeah, Damian Maia. Yeah, Damian Maia moved down to 170 pounds. So Anderson Silva, there's a difference between being a great champion in a great era and being a great champion in a suppressed era. It's sort of like the difference between Larry Holmes or Rocky Marciano or Vladimir Klitschko versus a guy like, say, Muhammad Ali. Right? Ali didn't have the reign of terror that John Jones did. He didn't have that, because Ali lost fights or whatever. But, he also fought in an era with other monsters.
Yeah.
Whereas guys like Marciano Klitschko, or Vladimir Klitschko specifically, these guys are fighting in eras where there's literally no competition. All right, to put a cap on it, I guess, The UFC runs a reality show twice a year called The Ultimate Fighter. And during Anderson Silva's reign, the majority of those weight divisions for The Ultimate Fighter were specifically targeted for Anderson Silva's middleweight division. Because they had such a lack of competitors in the division, the UFC was literally paying guys to show up in reality TV just to find anybody who could be a contender for Anderson Silva's title.
That's nuts. What about George St. Pierre? Where does his legacy rank?
Good segue. I was going to go with that. All right, so I'm going to throw out some stats for you. This will help with the debate. So Anderson Silva has 10 and leads with the most title defenses ever. Number 2 is George St. Pierre, who's now retired, tied with Demetrius Johnson. Number 4 would be John Jones at 8. So Damien and close friend were always arguing about this. He likes Fedor. I wasn't a Pride guy. Can't really comment on that. You probably watched Pride younger. Got some killers that eventually rolled over to UFC. I just feel like you can't ever be known as the GOAT because you didn't fight in the organization, because to me UFC is the top cream of the crop division. But Fedor really beat some really good guys on his resume, so I can't really, I'm not going to comment on that. But I'm going to go with George St. Pierre as the GOAT, greatest of our time. Here is the reason why. I know Damien's always talking about this sensitive. He's the only fighter, including Anderson Silva, John Jones, and George St. Pierre, all included, never to be popped on, as I call the Mexican supplements, substance abuse, or steroids. John Jones got popped recently, Anderson Silva a couple of weeks ago. So he basically had, a 6 or 7 year reign, 9 title defenses, never got popped. Boring fighter at the end, safe fighter, but beat everyone they put in front of him, never really dodged anybody, went out on top, been retired for 3 years. So the reason I would put him there as the greatest of all time discussion is because never got popped on any kind of drugs or steroids. But if you had to just pick in generally, steroids included in everything, I would agree with Damien. John Jones just has never really been even really pushed. I guess Alexander Gustafsson pushed him one time just because he's the same size, but he is basically murked and blown through everybody. The greatest talent ever. If he can get his shit together, is off out of the cage. He's the greatest ever when he's focused. Like, you can't beat him. Long, lanky kicks, submissions. It's just his length. Not really a big fan of him, but to respect him as a fighter, to me, he's the best. Steroids included in discussion.
Let's transition over before we go briefly to boxing, David, because here's a question I've always wanted to ask you. Floyd Mayweather Jr. And where does his legacy rank among greatest boxers?
That's a difficult. Just to respond to Trey's thing for a second, because the UFC is the greatest organization right now in mixed martial arts promotion doesn't mean that was always the case. 10 years ago, or now it's been like at least 10 years ago, Pride Fighting Championships had all the greatest fighters. You have guys who are fighting in Fedor's era, in Fedor's weight division, who are still top 10 UFC fighters right now. And these are guys that he blew the doors off in less than a round. So we'll just put it that way. And Fedor doesn't have the losses on his resume the way George St. Pierre. Like, George St. Pierre has 2 major losses in his prime, we're talking about, in his prime. Like, George St. Pierre got murked by Matt Serra and also has a loss to Matt Hughes in his prime.
Matt Hughes, one of the greatest welterweights of all time. That loss.
I agree.
Yeah. And he beat him 2 out of 3 in the all-time series.
Yeah, but I mean, Matt Hughes is 1 foot out the door at the end. In some of those fights. Yeah. Regarding Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s status as a boxer, this is something that the HBO commentators say. I think specifically Max Kellerman says he might be the greatest. He's one of the greatest pure boxers that ever lived. So that goes along with guys like he's in that elite level with like Sweet Pea, like Pernell Whitaker.
What about Roy Jones?
Yeah.
In his prime.
Yeah.
Not now because he's fighting in Russia, getting knocked out for money. But
Roy Jones, I think he has a fight on like internet pay-per-view next month.
He's a Russian citizen now because he fights over there.
He's a Russian citizen.
Yeah, he fights over there for money.
Yeah. So, but this is the same. Like, this is what happens to all fighters. These guys.
Damien, tell us who the big fighter of your life is. The biggest competitor for fighters.
The greatest. If the Earth was invaded by aliens and we needed one boxer to defend us, it would have to like Lennox Lewis. The guy I'm putting
put the whooping on Tyson back in the day.
I love it. The Earth was made by aliens, so we need one boxer to defend.
Do you remember, Nate Dogg? Do you remember Lennox Lewis?
Yeah,
Beast.
I seen he came in the comedy club one night.
Oh, wow. Dude, monster length. Like, but in his prime, though.
Patrick, that's the GOAT right there.
Dude,
that's the GOAT.
Dude, in his prime, hey.
Like, there's Lewis right there. Like, yeah, right. What's
Hey,
he doing
put
here? Like,
put the beating on Tyson in his prime, right? And Evander, I think.
Did you ask him if he wanted any fake Newtons?
I'm not going up to him.
Why not?
And
Dang,
hey,
you'd be
the
like,
guy
big
could just,
fan.
Push me and I get knocked out.
What's Lennox Lewis doing in Charlotte?
I don't know.
Yeah, but Floyd,
Anyway.
Floyd's like he's an all-time great fighter. He's somewhere in the top 50, top 40. Guys have him in the top 20.
What about Roy Jones?
Yeah, Roy Jones.
In his prime.
So Roy Jones is kind of like he's the perfect example of a guy who is one of the most sensational fighters you've ever seen, but he's not one of the greatest fighters you've ever seen. Like he didn't have in his prime. I don't think there's any guy beating Roy Jones Jr. He's so preternaturally athletically gifted, but he doesn't have the skills to fall back on the way Bernard Hopkins had to. So the way Bernard Hopkins extended his career it wasn't the same case for Roy Jones Jr. because they both were fighting well into their 40s. So this happened to Anderson Silva too. Once the physical gifts fade, you see what a guy actually has as a fighter, right? So it turned out that Bernard Hopkins had a lot more as a fighter because once Bernard Hopkins' physical gifts faded, he had it's arguable whether it was skills or he had the ability to foul without being called for it. But he had stuff to fall back on where he could get decisions where Roy Jones Jr. really couldn't get he couldn't beat the level of opposition that Bernard Hopkins beat later in his career.
Who's the most overrated, overhyped boxer of the last 30 years?
I mean, there's lots of those guys. There's overrated, overhyped.
Oscar De La Hoya?
No, Oscar De La Hoya is a guy. It's unfortunate that he has the losses on his record that he has because he had 2 losses against Shane Mosley. Turned out Shane Mosley went under federal deposition. Is that what's called federal deposition?
Yeah.
In a federal court during the Balco scandal, and then admitted to being given EPO. I think it was EPO and steroid cocktails by Balco, and those are 2 losses on Oscar De La Hoya's record. Those are 2 close fights that Oscar De La Hoya lost. Oscar De La Hoya is like what you want out of any boxing champion.
Doesn't dodge anybody.
Yeah, this is a guy. Not just that he didn't dodge anyone, he was at a financial disadvantage for taking those fights because he could make similar amounts of. This is what it's kind of like a study in contrast. The way Oscar De La Hoya promoted his career to the way Floyd Mayweather Jr. promoted his career. Right, Oscar De La Hoya took maximum risk for equal amounts of revenue. Whereas Floyd Mayweather Jr. took minimal risk for equal amounts of revenue. So, it's not great as a business. It's not as great if you're a businessman and a boxer to do what Oscar De La Hoya did because he was in some rough fights.
Yeah,
like he's fighting guys like Bazooka Corte. Guys that maybe aren't known to like the public at large, but these are dangerous fighters. Whereas Floyd Mayweather's taking fights like Henry Brucelis in his prime. You can't really say anything much more than that. But as for like overrated, I mean, there's guys like, it really depends. Like Arturo Gatti, fun guy to watch. Is he beating anybody that's a legit champion? No, but he's like one of the bigger names of recent memory in boxing. What about
Cesar Chavez?
Julio Cesar, you're talking about the senior, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a legitimately great fighter. Yeah, that's
period. End of story.
Hey, talk about you just watched the movie. Like talk about Roberto Duran, which talk about Hands of Stone, just his legacy. Pretty good. You talk about him.
Roberto Duran. This is way before my time. Even Julio Cesar Chavez. For the most part, way before my time. I've seen fights. Watching on YouTube or read Wikipedia or boxing articles. But this holds true for. This is a general rule in boxing. If a guy is a smaller guy and is going up in weight, he should be getting more credit for what he's doing than guys who are naturally at that weight. So Roberto Duran, gets killed by not necessarily the boxing media or the boxing public, but he gets killed by the general public for no mas. That seems to be what he's remembered by with the general public.
Good.
But like, he's a historically great. He's one of the all-time great lightweights who's moving up to welterweight, and then gets a win. He's an all-time great lightweight who did great things at welterweight and even middleweight.
Yeah.
I'm not a very big boxing fan, but it's something I've been wanting to get into for a while. And someone had told me the best fights to start with are the Marquez Vasquez trilogies.
Those are great fights. Part of the problem with them is, I think those fights were contested maybe at like bantamweight, they were somewhere under the 130 under lightweight. So I think they were contested maybe at 126 pounds, 118 pounds or something like that. I would go for familiar fighters who are in great fights. So, like, to me, the Evander Holyfield-Riddick Bowe trilogy. Like those are hotly contested fights against two, like, especially Holyfield, against with a legitimately great fighter in there and another guy who was a monster in his prime. And there's tons of action, and all three fights are relevant to the heavyweight title picture at that point.
I had a friend who was like, start with that, Corrales and Castillo, and Floyd and Gotti. Like those are three.
What was the one with the base where they beat hell each other for 3? Based off the fighter, that guy, Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, that's Arturo Gotti, Mickey Ward.
Yeah, those are like
the first one is a legitimately great fight. Corrales Castillo 1 is one of the craziest fights you'll ever see. Especially the 10th. The 10th round might be one of the greatest rounds in boxing history. If you're going to pick a Floyd fight, I would watch Corrales Castillo 1, the first fight, and then watch Floyd Corrales, because at that point at lightweight, Diego Corrales is a monster at lightweight, and Floyd Mayweather is still he's in his prime, but he's still young in his prime, and he is taking a dangerous fighter in Diego Corrales. This happened before the Corrales Castillo fight. And then watch what Floyd Mayweather does to Diego Corrales. It's one of the biggest beatdowns over another. Like, Diego Corrales isn't a historically great fighter,
right?
But there's levels to that. So like, he's not a historically great fighter, but he's a great fighter of his era. So just watch Corrales Castillo. I believe at that point that was the number 1 and number 2 guy at lightweight, and then watch what Floyd Mayweather does to Diego Corrales. And then that'll give you a picture of a great fighter, a great fight in Corrales Castillo, and then it'll give you a picture of a great fighter's one of his finest performances in Floyd Mayweather over Corrales.
What about the Holyfield? Who is the trilogy Holyfield had?
Bo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just telling Patrick about that. It's an all-time great trilogy.
Where does
those are all action fights that are historically relevant to the heavyweight title picture.
Where does Evander rank among the all-time greats? Top 50?
Oh yeah.
Evander is a guy. This is the same thing with kind of what happened to Roberto Duran. Evander Holyfield is one of the greatest cruiserweights that ever lived. In the same way, Roberto Duran is one of the greatest lightweights that ever lived, right? The problem is, when you clean out your division, maybe even clean it out twice, there's not much left for you to do at the division, so you have to move up in weight.
Sugar Ray Leonard,
right?
Man.
Well, this is the thing.
Hands of Stone.
This is the thing. Roberto Duran at 135 moves up to 147 to fight Sugar Ray Leonard. Beats Leonard, right? But then has 2 losses. But he's coming up in weight 12 pounds to fight Sugar Ray Leonard, right? So and the fact that he wins the first fight basically makes Roberto Duran's all-time status right there.
Yeah.
If you put his work at lightweight and then that first win against Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran doesn't have to do anything else in his career, and he'll still be an all-time great fighter. The fact that he did more just further adds to his greatness. But it's the same thing with Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield cleans out cruiserweight, has nothing left to prove at cruiserweight, and then has to move up to heavyweight, and that's where Evander Holyfield cements his legacy. It's where he builds his legacy and cements his legacy as an all-time great fighter.
Yeah,
but he's doing this at a weight. He doesn't have to fight a heavyweight. He could have spent the rest of his. He's one of the smaller heavyweights in recent history, and especially like Evander Holyfield.
Especially after he lost that ear.
Yeah, but like Evander Holyfield,
a little rancho in there.
If he's fighting in the era of Ali and Frazier and these guys, like who's to say he can't beat those guys? These are guys all similarly sized to him, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Holyfield, he's fighting in the era of circus freak show fighters like Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe, guys who are 6'6", 260 pounds.
One more question. All right, let's flip over to the WWE.
Oh wow, we going there?
John Cena.
Wow.
If John Cena fights back in the Attitude Era, or even like let's just say mid 2000s, where is he on the card?
All right, and I'm going to go there. Hey, this will be the room real quick. Let him answer that. But I got one last question, WWE, real quick. Go ahead.
You can answer that?
Yeah, go ahead. You know Cena. You do
I know
it. Cena? I mean, he's curtain jerker. He's behind Rock and Stone Cold. I say you put him what?
Yeah, but there's a difference between being behind Rock and Stone Cold and being a curtain jerker. Like curtain jerker, that term specifically means that you're opening up the card. Like
you put him after the women. 2000s. You put it. I think you put him ahead of Triple H.
Right, but like
you put him ahead of Triple H.
No, this
Triple
is
H
like
garbage to me easily.
He's ahead of Triple H. There's no doubt about that.
But like 2000, yeah, you put Stone. I mean, you put him. It'd be like Stone Cold, Rock, whatever their feud is. Maybe put a Taker. Maybe he's top 4 or 5 somewhere in there.
He's ahead of Taker.
Really?
So like
Taker's big.
So it's
in his prime, man.
It's Stone
Kurt
Cold.
Angle.
Yeah.
No, not Kurt. You're talking about Cena.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes Stone Cold, Rock, and then John Cena. Right? Like he's not curtain jerking. Whatever Trey wants to think about that. There's guys like Val Venus who are I know we want
the Big Lebowski.
I like Val Venus.
You know what he's doing now? He's like selling weed somewhere. He's like a weed seller.
He was in TNA for a while.
There you go.
But like we want to romanticize that era, and like I liked Val Venus back then. But like John Cena is loads better than a lot. We had guys like X-Pac back then, Road Dogg and Jesse. Like these.
The Road Dogg, Jesse James.
The badass Billy Gunn. The two age outlaws.
Yeah, Cena is probably the 4th greatest WWF wrestler of all time.
Whoa!
No way!
Whoa!
No way!
That goes into what I digress.
Because you put Rock and Stone Cold.
Hold on. Here's the thing. I was going to ask this.
Macho Man.
Nah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And Andre the Giant.
I don't know.
Shawn Michaels.
Hey, here you go. I was going to add this.
No, sorry.
Hey, dog, you can say this.
Is spent on the mic, and Shawn Michaels, unfortunately.
Here's you go. I'm gonna go. Who's the best? Everybody can answer this. Best worker of all time in WWE or WWF. Worker, not necessarily the mic. Greatest athlete, greatest match. Who would you say? Sean. We'll let him lead. We know who it is.
It's 1A and 1B. I think it's Shawn Michaels and Undertaker.
Worker?
Oh yeah.
For a big guy?
Yeah, I mean,
right.
Undertaker's like what? 6'11", 7 foot tall.
Doing the rope thing.
I'm glad you mentioned the Undertaker.
Taker, baby.
This goes into my point. I think Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, who's one of the more criminally underrated WWE even WCW stars of all time. And the reason why I'm going to mention him is he's like the combination of Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, right? Undertaker's problem as a worker is that he can't work small. So he's
big dude, man.
But this is the problem. There's big dudes who can work small. Undertaker can't work small. So there's only a certain type of match the Undertaker can have, and it vastly limits the artfulness of his matches, right? Shawn Michaels can't work big, right? So it limits the way he can portray himself as a wrestler. You have a guy like Scott Hall, who's probably, what is he, like 6'7", 6'8", something like that?
Yeah.
Scott Hall can work big and he can work small, right? Like, he doesn't look out of place doing a choke slam, which he used in his WCW tenure. I think he used it in his WWF tenure, too. But he also can, like, he had one of the legitimately great WWF matches against Shawn Michaels in the ladder match. Right?
Yeah.
So, like,
he's agile.
So Scott Hall also is phenomenal, much better on the mic than either Undertaker or Shawn Michaels, right? So Scott Hall has the mic part, which is as crucial as the in-ring work. I would say more crucial than that because you have to talk people into the arena, and he can work a variety of styles very well.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the thing, you know who else you probably need to put above John Cena, even though his WWF reign in like the late 70s was kind of short? Probably Dusty Rhodes.
Hard times.
Dusty Rhodes, I don't think was in the WWF in the 70s. He was in the WWF, I believe, in the late 80s.
He was definitely there in like the 70s. Like, is it either the late 70s or early 80s, right before they got Hulk Hogan? Like, he had a series with superstar Billy Graham.
Mm-hmm. Is that the WWF or the WWF?
Either one. I guess it was before Hulk came in, though.
Okay. Yeah, I've always thought of that.
Man, you went way deep on that one.
More like an NWA guy?
NWO for life. Yeah. All right. I think Nate Dogg's about to go here. We got to cut it short here. Hey, great topics here. Thanks for special guests on here. Big Sean and Big D. Talked a little Dawgs win. Talked a little NFL. Talked a little doggies. Talked a little NFL. Talked a little UFC. Talked a little old school. Can I say barbershop?
Talk a little boys school.
Barbershop boxing. There you go, Nate Dogg. Let's get the sign off here. Hey, this will be the last one for 2016. Let's get this shitty year.
In the year stuff next week.
Hey, let's get this shitty year over with. 2016, and glad that we could all get together today.
All right, good
Unemployable, episode 16.
Good night, man.
There we go.